If you're a finance leader in a UK startup, grants and incentives still matter in 2026, but they're very different to what they were a few years ago. So in this video, I'm going to explain when grants are worth your time, when they're a distraction, and how they could potentially fit in your overall funding strategy within your startup or scale up. Hi, my name's Alysha Randall. I'm a fractional CFO and I also train new and aspiring CFOs within startups or scale ups. So if that sounds interesting to you, then please do click on the subscribe button below. So for startups and scale ups, extending your cash runway, it's still one of your biggest priorities. So everything about cash should absolutely be on your radar. It should be your number one priority. It's probably what the founder and the board are going to talk to you about the most. I've done plenty of videos on managing cash. So if that's something you're not doing, maybe take a look at that first and then come back to this one. In 2026, for the last couple of years, costs are much higher than what they were a couple of years ago. Fundraising is taking much longer and investors are being a bit more picky. And they also expect the finance team to be much more deliberate on how cash is used and being spent. So you have to be more efficient than what you did, say, a couple of years ago. So that means that finance leaders really need to look beyond the obvious options. So equity fundraising, R&D tax credits, they all still matter, particularly equity fundraising, but they shouldn't just be the only levers you pull. So grants and incentives and targeted funding schemes can be overlooked, but it is something you just need to be mindful of and just have a look every so often to see if it fits with you and your business. They are useful, but they can feel unclear, time consuming, or not really worth the effort. But in reality, if you really use grants selectively and at the right stage, then it can make a meaningful difference. So R&D tax credits in the UK, anyhow, are no longer a safety net that they once were. So for a long time, UK tax credits are really a default for early stage tech businesses in particular, because they are quite generous, reasonably predictable, and you could even build it into your cash flow planning. So if I'm doing a budget, I actually don't put R&D tax credits within the budget. I see it as something I keep in my back pocket, and it's an additional buffer for me in my cash flow because things can sometimes always go wrong. And so with R&D tax credits, I see this as something that can go right, but I don't want to rely on it. And I certainly don't want to rely on the amount. So I definitely exclude it from all budgets. As much as founders want me to put it in, I don't. So because there has been so many rule changes over the last few years, startups are receiving less than what they expect. They're getting much more scrutiny, or worst case, they don't even qualify at all. So the autumn budget that we've recently had in the UK that's helped slightly, but R&D credits, they're really no longer a reliable cash buffer that they once were. So that's UK specific, but grants that I'm talking about is more general. But with R&D tax credits, it's definitely worth pursuing where appropriate. But as I said, just need to be a bit more realistic. It's now a part of the picture, but it definitely shouldn't be part of your plan. So why grants matter more in 2026? So in the current crazy environment, grants and incentives definitely play a different role. So they're not there to fund day-to-day operations, absolutely not. But what they can help you with is support innovation and product development, reduce the cost of very specific projects. They can potentially extend runway without dilution. And obviously, equity fundraising, you do have to deal with dilution. And it can even add credibility in investor conversations. So this is why sometimes they can definitely be worth the effort. I've certainly worked with businesses where we have got grant funding, and most of them have got the grant funding for very specific things, which I will go through now. So in the UK, there's still quite a wide range of grant schemes, but they're much more targeted than what you might expect. So most are designed to encourage very specific behaviors such as innovation, export growth, sustainability, or collaboration with research institutions. So Innovate UK is still one of the most relevant bodies for startups with really thinking about innovation, as it says on the tin, but it's highly competitive and time consuming. So if your product roadmap really aligns with the brief, then it's potentially worthwhile going through. But I have attempted Innovate UK a few times with my clients. I've even paid for assistance with Innovate UK, but I can confirm that I haven't been successful yet. And when I learn how many applications have gone in for a specific grant and how many they approved, you can see it's almost a lottery. So definitely just be mindful of whether your product roadmap really aligns with what they're looking for. So the areas that I have actually managed to raise grant funding, or founders who I'm working with have managed grant funding, is if it's a bit more nuanced. So there are much more practical schemes that may get missed, and it's for certain things that you're looking for. So the first one is regional funding. This one can often be underrated. This is one area that can be overlooked, and it's actually the one area I look at first. So this is if you're outside London or in another country, you're outside the capital city or really large cities, so whether that's New York, Sydney, what have you. There are still a lot of local growth hubs. So whether that's council, regional development bodies, I've even seen a group of, say, angel investors who all went to Cambridge University and decided to create a grant funding scheme around the Cambridge area. So these are often smaller amounts, but they're much more accessible and quicker to secure. And you also have a smaller amount of competition. So with one of our clients, for example, they had a warehouse in the Midlands in the UK, so outside London. And because of where they were, and they were hiring quite a bit of people that were located in that area, we were able to secure grant funding that was specifically for that area. So for startups looking for modest funding to support hiring, equipment, expansion into new regions even, then this can also help. So again, that another client of ours, we were looking to moving and securing quite a big office in Leeds, and we were thrown loads of grants, actually options to help us with that move because they wanted us to be there. So it's definitely worth checking out what exists locally before looking at, say, debt or the UK Innovation Grant. The other one is sector-specific innovation grants. So some of the most valuable grants are very sector-specific. So these tend to focus on technology, climate, health, data, projects with very clear social environmental angle. They're often the closest equivalent to R&D credits in terms of intent, supporting businesses and generally building something new. On the European side as well, there is also EU innovation programs post-Brexit that you can still access if in the UK, and obviously you can access in the EU. But it's definitely worthwhile, regardless of where you are located, looking at very sector-specific grants. So another one of my clients, they're in Spain. They are very much on the med tech, so medical tech side of things, and they were able to secure grant funding in Spain to develop their product. And they got two grants actually, and few $100,000, so quite sizable grants. You have to be quite honest about the time costs. So grants are not free money. They definitely require time, both from you as a finance leader, but also the project or tech lead. They will definitely need clear project definition, strong financial modeling, and ongoing reporting. So similar to your R&D returns, you most definitely probably have your product lead and CTO heavily involved in preparing that return. Same kind of thing for grants. So Poorly targeted applications are a huge waste of time. And as a finance lead, your role is to help founders and the business decide which opportunities are worth pursuing and which aren't. In many cases, the right answer is to apply for fewer grants, but do them properly. So grants and incentives work best when they sit alongside other funding sources. So they can support innovation, they can help you reduce the risk and strengthen the overall funding story, but they're not going to replace equity fundraising or revenue growth. So you do have to see it as an assister rather than solving all of your problems. In 2026, investors expect finance leaders to show that they've explored all sensible options and made deliberate choices. So really understanding grants and incentives is part of that professionalism. And not because every startup should apply for all of the grants, but it's just good finance leadership knows when it makes sense. So definitely work out which regions you want to explore, which is your niche, and have a look at those. Just do a bit of a AI search. Perplexity is a good one. And or ask around as well. So particularly if you have a group of CFOs or not even CFOs, just people within your specific niche, and just ask around as well. And you should be able to come up with some things quite quickly. So don't discount grants, but just do it in the right way. If you want to be a confident and skilled finance leader within the next 12 months, I've got a 3-step plan for you. The first one is to subscribe to this channel. I do a video every single Thursday, and we talk about how to be a really strong finance leader in a startup or scale up. The second one is to have a look at my book, Financial Leadership Fundamentals, How to Become a CFO in a Startup or Scale Up, where we go through the FLF framework that I use with all of my clients and exactly how just like building blocks, how you build up to a strong CFO, and loads of actions at the end of every single chapter that you can implement immediately. And the final one is if you want that additional support, like Sam Johns did in an interview I did recently, take a look at that one as well, where you can have Q&A sessions with myself and I can support you in your CFO career. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in next week's video. Cheers.